It talks with Rain and Lee, where we talk motherhood, faith, love, and hope.
Tripping. Welcome back to As I Know. This is actually Toxic Reality. So, I changed up my name, then forgot. But I have something today, and I might show my face, I might not, because I'm recording it, and I look homeless. But okay, I don't look homeless, but I do look homely. So, um, I had a thought, and I was thinking about what my prayers have been lately. My prayers used to look like, Lord, provide me with a partner. And they still are sometimes. I pray for my future husband every day. Not every day, but a lot of times. He wake me up at 3 a.m. I go to prayer about my future husband, but also just about protecting my child lately. Because things are a lot deeper than we try to make them. Things are more spiritual. People say you're over spiritualizing. You can't over spiritualize anything. It is about, everything is a spiritual battle, literally, for your soul. And so I was listening to this woman that I be listening to a lot, and she said, she's talking about how God will send you something that you may not have um, realized you need, including the grace to not desire something that you want. And I had a thought on how sometimes our desires could literally lead to the death of you. What I mean is sometimes we're praying for a spouse, right? And God hasn't sent the spouse yet because he's still working on us. And our arrogance and our pride, we believe that we've already reached there. Some of us believe we've always been there because we've had the grace to have self-discipline in areas in our life that others have not. So we're comparing ourselves to others, and we're saying that, well, I'm more disciplined than them, so why haven't that came? And what we fail to realize is how flawed we are. And if he had bought us that spouse at that time, we'd probably be divorced by now, which I am. And we could see that I could blame it all on him, but you cannot, like, when you're grown, you cannot blame it on like just conditioning. You know what I mean? Like at some point, you have to take accountability. At some point, are you always going to blame your conditioning on your childhood, on things that happened to you? I mean, things that have happened to you in your past on now, or are you going to take accountability to change so that you can steward in those things that God's trying to give you as gifts? Because we think that we are only God's daughter or God's son, but the person that we're asking him for are too, and he doesn't want to put them with you so you can harm them in any way, shape, or form, because words and emotional trauma is worse sometimes than somebody even physically harming you, because sometimes when the physical harm starts, there was already a wave of emotional abuse and everything. And how arrogant are we to think that we can never do that to somebody? It could be easier than we think. Thinking that we're just so innocent that we can never do anything. Matter of fact, our abusers in the past have thought the same thing. Like they wouldn't have, if they would have did this, I want to do. And it's like it's everybody looks at that. So if you're thinking like that, you're already selfish. And maybe that's why God doesn't want to send you anybody, because of your self-centeredness. Because marriage, you got to get out of being selfish. You really do. And it's such a hard thing to do, because today you might be in a place where you're less selfish, but tomorrow you're selfish. Tomorrow and then the next day you're selfish. Then the next day like 6 days out of the week you're selfish, but one day out of the week you can be self-sacrificing. That's not enough. Every single day you have to be self-sacrificing, as well as having children. And I know that because I have children. There are so many parents out there who are not self-sacrificing for their children. Instead, they are sacrificing their children. And we see it every single day. You know what I mean? Like we see it every day, it happening. And I have been in a many, I don't even want to use the words depression because I'll be trying not to speak word curses over me, but I've been in a mini mind funk from watching certain things. Like I watched uh Father Husband Killer or something like that. And this man literally he love bombed his own child. Now granted he didn't raise her, so he didn't feel that fatherly connection with her, but still at some point, like it just was so selfish of him because they trying to blame the girl, but I'm like, she's easily malleable. It's obvious she's easily malleable. We all are at that age. And but we still have the knowledge that something is wrong. Even if it felt right, we still have the knowledge that something is wrong. And anyway, I don't know why I got off that subject, but it's just so many babies that are being unprotected, and it's because of our selfishness. And we like, oh, I want kids for me, for my benefit. And your kids is like, my daughter even said, because we say this to our parents, why you have us if this and the third. And we forget that that was our mindset as kids. Like a lot of things are being protected and you don't realize it. And so I was saying that because sometimes we have a desire and we do not want to give over our desires to God, for some reason. Like for me, having a husband, for me, I am struggling to give that desire over to God. And I mean completely, because the scary part is, what if you give it to him and he says that that's not your for you for some reason, and you're at peace with it. There's something about that that's scary to me, and that's just me being honest and transparent. But giving your desires over to God is literally asking him to take this if this is not my portion. If this is not what you want for me, if you do not desire this for me, then Lord, I'm going to need you to take away this desire and bring an unnatural peace that the rest of the world could not even understand or get or fathom. Why am I so calm when the rest of the world idolizes marriage, when the rest of the world idolizes relationships? And it's a scary thought when you really think about it. And it's like, no, 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 I really do want to be married, because I realize some of the reasons why I want to be married again is to have legal sex, and that's spiritually legal sex, for the Lord to not look down upon me when I do what I do, and that's not really a good reason. But then the other part is I wanted my daughter to see a marriage, like to see me be properly loved and everything like that. And so then you have to think about, well, if God aligns everything for the kingdom, then my desires for marriage and why I want marriage kind of need to change a little tad bit, because they're more self centered, self, I forgot the name for it in the Bible, but they're more about self. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, I just had that thought because I was thinking, what if your desires will actually lead you to destruction, to death, like the husband you want? So you rush it and you get with somebody, because you cannot pressure God, please. If you think you can pressure God, but make your choice, but don't blame God for your choice that you make. You know what I mean? And I do think that the Lord, at the right timing, will give it to you if He keeps that desire. But it is when I believe that you just say, you know what, Lord, if you don't want nothing for me, then help me desire what you want for me. Like in my career, in my kingdom with you, like how do I minister to people? How do I bring more people to the kingdom of God? And hopefully within that process is when he'll bring you the desire for a spouse, because that's what I'm kind of talking about in this, in other ways too, because I've been having more desires for my career and stuff like that as well. But anyway, I thought that I wanted to put in there something to pray on, something to think on, something to ask God for, something to fast on. Until next time, like, subscribe. Oh, and share. Help your girl out.